Welcome to this lesson, and here we are finally going to conquer the topic of hypothesis testing. And it's one of the most central thing that students study in all statistic courses. And it gives a lot of people problem, and we're here actually very excited to teach hypothesis testing because we believe we can break it down into bite size so that as long as you follow us through a lesson by lesson, you'll understand everything there is to know about hypothesis testing. The good news is it's not really a difficult concept to understand, but the bad news is most of the textbooks out there make it entirely too hard. The main reason the hypothesis testing seems difficult to a lot of students is because there is a lot of different cases that you have to consider. And in those different cases, you kind of have to handle a little bit differently. Just take a bird's eye view. There will be cases when we have a small samples and a case when we have a larger sample. There will be times when we're talking about one parameter and times when we were talking about another. In these different cases, we have to use a different distribution and a slightly different techniques. But the overall idea of what a hypothesis test is remain the same for all of those problems. So, here was a lot of definitions, a lot of groundworks, but we promise you that by understanding this stuff, when we get to the next section or the next video soon, it's going to be much easier because you'll know that what a null hypothesis is, and you'll know what an alternative hypothesis is, and you'll know the general idea of what we're doing with hypothesis testing. Now, let's talk about the idea of a hypothesis. I know everyone watching has an idea of what this is. We've all taken science classes and understood the basic concept. But in statistics, there is a very specific meaning. Basically, it is a premise or more commonly a claim that we want to test or investigate. In statistics, we can go in a laboratory and do experiments. But what we can do is survey people, maybe 100 or 300 people, to get data and use that to study the population. So, when we talk about investigating a claim, we are talking about sampling, gathering information, and then testing the hypothesis. Much like in science, you have an idea and you want to test it. For example, my hypothesis is that if I go to a high enough atmosphere, I will find a rainbow meadow with apples and clouds. That is my hypothesis, but I have to test it somehow, with a telescope, a ladder, or an airplane. In statistics, we create a test to investigate the hypothesis we have put together. Half the challenge is reading the problem, identifying what the hypothesis is, understanding what you are interested in studying, and then figuring out which test you need to use to get there. Now, let's talk about the null hypothesis. What does the word null means? If you've studied math or programming, null generally means zero or empty. But here, when we talk about the null hypothesis, we are talking about the default hypothesis, the established fact. We denote this in statistics as H0. This presents the currently accepted value for a parameter. For example, maybe previous studies says that the average birth weight of human is within a certain range. That established fact is what we call H-naught. Generally, someone comes along wanting to challenge that idea. They believe that the current view is not true. So they come up with an alternative hypothesis that they want to test. We call this H sub A, which stands for alternative. In some books, this is also called the research hypothesis because this is the claim you actually want to test. Think about science history. Isaac Newton created the law of gravitation and calculus. For hundreds of years, that was the accepted truth. That was the null hypothesis. And then Albert Einstein came along and presented an alternative hypothesis saying gravity is actually the curvature of space-time. We tested this and it turned out Einstein was right. Newton's version was simplified and not totally accurate. But Einstein's version is much more accurate and describes how the universe actually works. So, there is always a null hypothesis, what everyone considers true based on past data. Then someone presents an alternative hypothesis. That is what you are researching.
To help you understand the difference between H-naught and H sub A, let's look at this example. It is believed that a candy machine makes chocolate bars that average 5 grams in mass. A worker claims that after maintenance, the machine no longer makes 5-gram bars. So here is the situation. H-naught is what everyone believes, that the machine makes the bars averaging 5 grams. This is the default position. H sub A is what the worker is saying. I think this machine no longer makes chocolate bars averaging 5 grams. This is the claim we are investigating. In mathematical terms, H-naught states that the mean is equal to 5 grams, and H sub A states that the mean is not equal to 5 grams. Important thing for you to realize, the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis are mathematical opposites. You can see that here. For all of these hypothesis tests that we're going to do, the null and alternative are always opposites. In some cases, we'll have a less than sign here for the null. Well then, that means the alternative has to be greater than. Because basically, the alternative is going to be whatever the null hypothesis is not. That's just the way it always is for every problem. We're going to do so many of these problems, you'll get to see it over and over again. Here it's very easy to see that these are mathematical opposites. So, let me ask you a question. Let's say that this was actually our conundrum. We were running a chocolate factory. The null hypothesis is we think our machines were running and making 5-gram bars. But now, a new maintenance guy says, hey, we've been done an overhaul and now the bars are no longer 5 grams. So, what are the possible outcomes of this test? We want to test the alternative hypothesis. H-naught is thought to be true. It's kind of like a court. You're innocent until proven guilt. So, we're going to assume that the null hypothesis is still true unless the evidence says that we need to reject that null hypothesis. In which case, H sub B is what we say to be true. So it's kind of like an uphill battle, just like anything in science. You have the currently accepted thing, and then you have a hypothesis. Well, you're always going to assume that the null hypothesis is true unless evidence points otherwise. So, what are the possible outcomes of this test? The possible outcomes of this test, and when I say this test, I mean this investigation of the alternative hypothesis. There's only two things that can happen, and they're phrased very specifically in statistics. The first thing that can happen is what we can reject the null hypothesis. Okay, if we reject the null hypothesis, then we say the data says this is no longer true, in which case H sub A is promoted to be what we think is true. So we're not really proving it's true. We're just saying the evidence is saying this is false. Therefore, this must have more truth than the null hypothesis. The other thing that we can do is we can fail to reject the null hypothesis. Notice that we've never proven the null hypothesis is true. So it's very hard in life to prove that something is true. How do I prove to you that the sun is there? Well, have you ever touched the sun? Well, you can see it's sure, but could be a movie projection and it could be anything. It's very hard to prove something's true because we can't always go out and touch everything. So we're not really proving that one of this is true and one of this is false. But because it's very hard to prove it's true, it's just like a court of law. You assume something is true and you're trying to basically prove and see if you reject a premise or not. So here, there's two possible outcomes. We reject the null hypothesis or we fail to reject the null hypothesis. If we fail to reject the null hypothesis, then we're basically keeping our arrow here and we're saying we believe this to be the case. So if we reject this guy, then we come down here, we say we believe H sub A to be the case. For the currently accepted data that we have, we're not really providing it's true or proving it's true. We're just saying this is false or this is not false, and then whatever else is around is going to be promoted to the king of the hill, so to speak. And that's then, at the point I guess you say you believe that that's true until something else challenges it. So you either reject the null hypothesis or you fail to reject the null hypothesis. So the question then becomes, how do you do the testing? So how do you actually determine if you reject it or not? Well, you have to use something called a test statistic, right? So the test statistic, and what this means is, this is calculated from sample data and used to decide. And what are we deciding? We're just trying to decide if we reject the null hypothesis or we fail to reject the null hypothesis. So, as an example in this case of the candy bar factory, maybe we sample 50 bars, 50 chocolate bars. So, obviously, we can sample all of these bars because we're trying to sell chocolate. So, we can't open them all. So, we just sample 50 of them because it's not practical to do it to all of them. So let's say that we get average value of the mass of the bar, right? So then we calculate, we use this information, something that we call the test statistic. So this is basically an equation that's dependent on the type of problem that you have, and you use this test statistic to help you determine if the data that you have is statistically significant enough to reject this null hypothesis or not. So just to kind of give you a little something more concrete, we talk about this thing called statistically significant. And in layman's terms, what is statistically significant? So in terms of hypothesis test, what it basically is where do we draw the line to help us decide if we should reject the null hypothesis or not to make a decision?
So, good day everyone. Let me continue our discussion. So, ngayon, pag-uusapan natin yung mga steps o procedure sa hypothesis testing. Alam niyo naman siguro na ang hypothesis testing ay isang paraan para malaman natin kung totoo o valid yung claim natin based sa data. So, paano ba ito ginawa? Let's go through each step one by one. So, step number 1, set up a hypothesis. So, dito natin ilalagay yung mga statement na gusto nating i-test. May dalawa tayong hypothesis. Dito yung null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. So, let me just recall the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. So, di ba yung null hypothesis, usually sinasabi nito na walang difference o walang effect. Walang pababago. So, ito yung standard assumption natin. Tapos, yung alternative hypothesis naman, ito yung kabaliktaran. Sinasabi nito na may difference, may effect, o may pagbabago. So, dito natin sinasabi kung ano yung gusto nating patunayan sa study natin. So, yun yung step 1. So, let's go sa step 2. Ang step 2 ay set up a suitable significance level. So, ano ba ito? So, ito yung tinatawag nating alpha o symbol na alpha. Ito yung nagtatakda kung gaano ka-strict yung test natin. Sa practice, usually ginagamit natin ay 5%. Alpha equals 0.05. O kaya 1% alpha equals 0.01. Bakit 5%? Ibig sabihin nito, may 5 chances out of 100 na baka nagkamali tayo ng desisyon. So, yung tinanggihan natin na hypothesis ay totoo pala. Pero, sa kabilang banda, ibig sabihin din ito na 95% sure o confident tayo na tama yung desisyon na gagawin natin. So, we have a graph in here. So, makikita natin na may tinatawag tayo acceptance region and rejection region. So, let me explain further about this graph. So, ngayon naman, tignan natin itong graph. So, ito yung visual presentation kung paano gumagana yung hypothesis testing. Lalo na pagdating sa decision making. So, sa nakikita natin dyan, yung hugis bell na nakikita natin, yung curve na ito, tinatawag itong normal distribution curve. So, dito, nakaplano lahat. Like, ng mga possible values o result na pwede nating makuha dyan sa parang curve na yan. So, next is the acceptance region. Yung malaking area sa gitna, sa nakikita nyo po, ito yung tinatawag nating acceptance region. So, ito yung area kung saan kapag pumasok o nandoon yung computed value natin, ibig sabihin, walang sapat na ebidensya. Like, para tanggihan yung null hypothesis. So, dito, ang desisyon natin ay fail to reject or wag munang tanggihan. Ibig sabihin, valid pa rin yung assumption natin na walang difference o walang effect. Tumungo naman tayo sa rejection region. So, ngayon, tignan naman natin yung mga nasa dulo o gilid, yung mga may shade. So, nakita nyo na, ito yung tinatawag nating rejection region o critical region. Ito yung area na kapag lumagpas o pumasok dito yung result natin, ibig sabihin, malayo na siya sa expected value. So, kapag nandito na yung computed value natin, ang decision natin ay reject null hypothesis o tanggihan natin ang null hypothesis. So, meaning, may enough evidence tayo na para sabihin may difference, may effect, o totoo yung claim natin na alternative hypothesis. Sa madaling salita, kapag yung value mo ay nasa gitna or acceptance region, meaning huwag natin tanggihan si null hypothesis. So, kapag lumagpas ka sa critical value at pumasok sa dulo, so sa rejection region, meaning tanggihan si null hypothesis. So, dahil na-discuss ko na ang step 1, step 2, at ang graph, ngayon, tumungo naman tayo sa step 3, which is the determination of suitable test statistic. So, dito natin piliin kung anong klaseng test ang gagamitin natin depende sa data natin. Halimbawa, pwede tayong gumamit ng z-test, t-test, chi-square, o kaya f-statistic. So, paano tayo makakapili? Depende yan kung anong klaseng data meron tayo. Kung malaki ba o maliit yung sample size. At kung anong yung pinagko-compare natin. Ang importante na tama yung mapili nating test para accurate din yung resulta. Dahil natapos na natin ang step 1, step 2, at step 3, dito naman tayo sa step 4. So, step 4, determine the critical value from the table. So, pag napili na natin yung test statistic, kukuha naman tayo ng value galing sa statistical table. So, ito yung tinatawag nating critical value o tabulated value. Ito yung magsasabing cut-off point o boundary natin. Dito natin malalaman yun kung saan nagsisimula yung rejection region. So, kumbaga, ito yung standard o basihan natin para ma-compare later yung computed value natin. Kumbaga sa laro, ito yung goal line o fall line. Kapag yung computed value natin ay hindi lumagpas dito, safe tayo. Nasa loob pa tayo ng acceptance region. Pero kapag lumagpas o mas malaki yung computed value natin kaysa dito, pasok na tayo sa rejection region. So, sa madaling salita, critical value, yan yung basihan natin o linya sa paglaruan natin para makapag-decide.
Now, step 5. In step 5, we take the numbers we just calculated and compare it to the benchmark number. You can think of this benchmark as a boundary line that we find in standard math table. Next is our step 6. In step 6, where we make our final decision, we have two choices. We either keep our original assumption, which is the null hypothesis, or reject it. And there's a simple rule. First is, if our number is bigger than the benchmark, it lands in the rejection zone. This means our result is big deal, so we reject the old assumption. If our number is smaller, it means nothing special happened. In that case, we keep the old assumption. So now, in short, if our number is strong enough to cross that line, we've proven something new. If not, things stays the same. Now, even with the best math, there is always a small chance of making a mistake. When we test a hypothesis, there are 4 possible outcomes. The first 2 are the hypothesis is true and our test correctly accepts it. the hypothesis is false and our test correctly rejects it. In both of these cases, we made the right call. However, the last two possibilities leads to errors. And this is where things get tricky. First is type 1 error. This happens when the hypothesis is actually true but our test tells us to reject it. Think of this as a false alarm. Type 2 error. This is the opposite. The hypothesis is actually false but our test tells us to accept it. This is like missing the sign of real change. So, as a researchers, our goal is to keep the chances of these two errors as low as possible so we can be confident in our final decision. Now we are going to discuss the fundamental concept of one-tailed and two-tailed test in hypothesis testing. This test help us determine whether to reject a null hypothesis based on where our sample statistics fall within a distribution. Now, two-tailed test, which you can see illustrated in figure 3. In a two-tailed test, we are looking for a change or a difference in either direction, whether the value is significantly higher or significantly lower than the population parameter. Because of this, the rejection region is divided into both the left and right tails of the distribution. As shown in the notation, hypothesis or our null hypothesis, mu is equals 3, and for our alternative hypothesis, mu is not equals to 3. If our result falls into either shaded tail, we reject the null hypothesis. Now, one-tailed test. One-tailed test, this is used when we are only interested in deviation in one specific direction. If the rejection area is on the left side, it is called a left-tailed test. As seen in figure 1, here are testing if the value is significantly less than the parameter. Our alternative hypothesis is mu is less than 3. If the rejection area is on the right side, it is a right-tailed test, shown in figure 2. This is used when we want to see if the value is significantly greater than the parameter, meaning our alternative hypothesis is mu is greater than 3. So, understanding the alpha. Finally, notice that the difference in significant level or alpha, in one-tailed test, the entire alpha, the risk of error is concentrated in just one tail. In a two-tailed test, we just split that alpha in half, written as alpha divided by 2, placing half the risk in the left and half in the right. Understanding which test to use depends entirely on your research question. Are you looking for any difference or difference in specific direction? Now, that concludes our overview of one-tailed and two-tailed test. Thank you.
So ganito ang mangyayari sa experiment. Halimbawa, nung Monday, kumuha siya ng 50 bars. Tapos, naging average ay 5.12 grams. Hindi naman siya eksaktong 5 grams, so technically, hindi equal. Sobrang lapit lang naman siya ng 5. So, baka naman may allowance lang talaga yung machine natin, di ba? Tapos, ibang tao naman nung Wednesday, kumuha rin ng 50 bars. Tapos, nakuha niya ay 5.72 grams. Ngayon, hindi na ito ganong kalapit sa 5. Mas malapit na siya sa 6. So, dito, medyo nagdududa na ako kung totoo ba yung H na. Naiisip ko na baka dapat ko na itong i-reject. Kaya kung 95% yung confidence, ibig sabihin C is 0.95. Tapos yung alpha ay 1 minus 0.95, kaya magiging 0.05. Makikita nyo, pag pinag-add mo yung C at alpha, laging 1 ang sagot dahil sa relation na yan.
So, pareho lang silang nagpapakahulugan yung confidence at significance level. Minsan sa problema, ibibigay sa iyo yung confidence. Minsan naman yung significance. Pero pareho lang yan. Sinasabi lang nila kung gaano ka kasigurado sa desisyon mo. Pero sa statistic, hindi pwedeng basihan lang kung ano sa tingin mo ang tama. Kailangan natin ng konkrete na paraan para tingnan yung null hypothesis. Mangolekta ng data at magdesisyon. I-reject ba natin o hindi? Kapag hindi natin i-reject, ibig sabihin, totoo pa rin siya. Kailangan natin ng sistematikong paraan at yan ang ginagawa ng hypothesis test. Kukolektahin mo yung data, ilalagay sa equation at may lalabas na number. Ituturo ko sa inyo paano malalaman kung sobrang taas o sobrang mababa ang numbers na yan para i-reject yung null hypothesis. Kaya hindi ka maghuhula, kukuha ka lang ng sagot at magdidesisyon base sa numbers. Kung 99%, ibig sabihin 99% sigurado tayo na tama lang na i-reject yung null hypothesis. Pero kung 50% lang, sinong maniniwala sa iyo? Kung kalahati lang yung sure ka, walang maniniwala sa result na yan. Kaya makikita nyo pa lang na nasa 90, 95 hanggang 98 o 99% lang yung ginagamit natin. Okay? Tapos, kung kabaliktaran yan, tinatawag nating level of significance. Napag-usapan na natin yan dati, pero inuulit ko lang para makumpleto. Tinatawag din itong alpha at ang formula nun ay 1 minus level of confidence. Kaya makikita mo kapag 7.23 grams, halos lahat naman magsasabi na sira na yung machine. Pero yung ibang numbers tulad ng malapit lang, baka may magsabi na okay lang at may magsabi na hindi. Yung pinakamalapit sa 5, iisipin mo baka okay pa naman, baka pwede i-check lang ulit. Pero lahat yan, opinion lang o subjective, malabo o fuzzy kasi depende sa tao yung desisyon. Yung iba, okay lang sa kanila, yung iba, hindi. Wala tayong sinusunod na specific na rules dyan. Nagpapaliwanag lang tayo ngayon. Alam ko naman, narinig nyo na dati yung tungkol sa level of confidence. Ganoon din ito katulad ng ginawa natin sa confidence intervals. Yung variable na tinatawag natin C, pwedeng 95% or 99%. Siyempre, pag kinocompute natin, gagamitin natin ng decimal form na 0.95 or 0.99. Pero ano ba talaga ibig sabihin nito? Ito yung sukatan kung gaano tayo kasigurado sa desisyon natin. Tandaan nyo, nagtitest tayo at nagdidesisyon tayo kung i-reject ba yung null o hindi. Yung level of confidence, sinasabi natin kung gaano katotoo o kasigurado tayo na tama yung ginagawa nating desisyon. At paano kung nung Friday, kumuha ulit at naging 7.23 grams ang average? Grabe, ang layo na ito sa 5 grams. Sigurado na ako na kapag ganito ang makuha nating data, hindi na gumagana ng maayos yung machine. So sa case na ito, i-reject ko na yung null hypothesis. Sasabihin ko na hindi na tayo gumagawa ng bars na average 5 grams. Bakit? Kasi 50 bars yung sinasample ko, hindi lang isa o dalawa. Naniniwala ko na hindi ito nagkataon lang. Yung 7.23, tinatawag nating statistically significant. Ibig sabihin, dahil ang dami nating sinasample, Sigurado tayo na hindi ito coincidence. Sobrang layo kasi niya sa 5, kaya imposible na totoo pa yung null hypothesis, kaya natin siya i-reject.
Good day, everyone. Before we start, let me explain first what the level of significance. In simple terms, the level of significance is the risk or chance that we are willing to take or to make mistake. It tells us how much error are we okay with. Looking at the slide, Maria uses 5% level of significance, proving that there is no significant change in the average number of enrollees. The value given is alpha is equal to 0.05. Now, what does this mean? As you can see in the graph, 0.05 is actually the area under the normal curve located in rejection region. In simple words, this shaded part represents the 5 risk or chance that Maria is willing to take to make a mistake in her conclusion. So the level of significance is a specific area in the graph where we decide if we reject or accept the hypothesis. Now that we know what level of significance is, let's talk about where we put this risk. We have two types of tests, one-tailed test and two-tailed test. We choose where to put this shaded area based on what we want to prove. First is the two-tailed test. We use this when our hypothesis says that something is not equal or different. It means we are checking both sides. It could be higher or it could be lower. Because we look at both directions, the level of significance or the shaded area is split into two parts, one on the left and one on the right. Let's look at this example. The registrar believes that the number of enrollees this year is not the same as last year. Because it says not the same or not equal, we use a total test. That is why in the graph, the shaded area is on both ends. Next is the one-tailed test. We use this when our hypothesis says that something is less than or greater than. It means we are focusing on only one direction or side. We are not looking at both sides. We are only checking specifically if it is higher or it is lower. Here is an example. The registrar believes that the number of enrollees is less than last year. Because it uses the symbol less than, we use a left-tailed test. Notice that the shaded area is now only on the left side. And lastly, this example, the registrar believes that the number of enrollees is greater than last year. Because it uses the symbol greater than, we use a right-tailed test. The shaded area is only the right side.
I just want to reiterate everything that we talked about, and I'll close with an analogy. Okay, in statistics, we want to test hypothesis. Hypothesis is just something. Some claim that we want to investigate, and there's two types. The null hypothesis is what we currently think is kind of fact or true. It is actually or usually comes from a previous survey or a previous set of data. Sometimes something that somebody's done in the past. Along comes somebody else with a new information and proposes an alternative hypothesis that they believe is true, but this is what we need to investigate or test. H naught is what we currently think is true. H sub A is what we're proposing to be true, and this is what we're essentially testing. And these are mathematical opposites of one another. So, the only way that we can resolve this is either we reject the null hypothesis or we fail to reject it. If we reject this guy, then we're supporting this and we're believing H sub A to be true. If we fail to reject this guy, that means that we're saying we're not rejecting it. So, we continue to believe H naught is true. And the analogy I want to draw to you, I've kind of hinted about it a little bit, but I want to make sure you understand what it's very similar to how courts work here in the Philippines, right? When you are accused of a crime, you're presumed to be innocent. That's the way it is supposed to work anyway. So, whenever someone is prosecuting you for theft or something like that, then the court is going to assume that you are innocent, and it's up to the lawyers and the evidence to prove your guilt, okay? You can prove that then. We must go back to the default or the null hypothesis, which is that you're innocent. And it's the same kind of thing here. We presume that H naught is the case, unless the evidence tells us to reject it, which case we go down to H sub A, and we say we think that is true. Okay, you don't have to prove innocence in statistics. And when I say innocence, I mean you don't have to prove that null hypothesis is true. You're just assuming it is, and then you decide if you reject it or you fail to reject it. So, here was a lot of definitions, a lot of groundworks, but we promise you that by understanding this stuff, when we get to the next section or the next video soon, it's going to be much easier because you'll know that what a null hypothesis is, and you'll know what an alternative hypothesis is, and you'll know the general idea of what we're doing with hypothesis testing. Thank you.